The reality that needs to be said out loud is that as Black men age, their desirability increases. Thus, their optionality of women is always expanding. And the exact opposite is true for Black women. As we age, doesn't matter how much money we accumulate, our degrees or professional accolades, the reality is that our marriage and partnership market value is depreciating with every passing year. No matter how good we look, no matter how fit we are, men are still seeing primarily our presumed dwindling fertility as a knock against us. And speaking of fertility, that is another reason that I want younger Black women to seek marriage and partnership in college or right after, if that's what they choose. Because the number of college-educated Black men is so low when compared to Black college-educated women that we're all going to be targeting the same small pool of men. And as we heard today, on most campuses, there's like 7 Black women students for every 1 Black man student. Y'all do the math. So here's my advice. If you are a young Black woman in college and you know in your heart and in your head that you want to prioritize family, I suggest that you simultaneously pursue that MRS degree right along with that BA or JD. Because the handful of Black college-age men that actually do desire to get married soon, and they do share that value system, and family is a priority for them too, y'all, that is an incredibly small pool, and it's shrinking as you get older. And by the time you reach my age, 40, you will be faced with different choices relating to life partnership and motherhood. Now, I'm not saying that delaying marriage or motherhood is a bad option, but it's one that comes with its own consequences. And our women deserve to know on the front end of their decision making instead of on the back half.
Said that. This is a conversation for ladies. And I texted my good friend Charlamagne. I said, as a friend to the show, I heard the conversation yesterday. I appreciated the critique and the constructive nature of it. And I said, since I'm down the street on the train, let me pull up and I want to hear from you, Lauren, about what you agree with and what you disagree with and have a ladies conversation about
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'll start with what I disagree with.
Well, Kim, first, for people that don't know, you want to play the clip of what went viral so people understand that?
The reality is that our marriage and partnership market value
yesterday. So some stuff is science, right? You can't get around that. But I feel like when you start with that and you lead with that, it then makes people get defensive and they don't even hear the rest of it. I know when I first listened to it, I was like, oh God, this is going to be another one of those conversations where like someone's telling me as a woman, by the time you get this age, your life is over. And when you're like trying to figure things out and you're like, I'm 31 years old, right? Like I'm recently out of a very long relationship. You want to feel, not I heard Charlamagne.
Jesus Christ.
Charlamagne told me, Lauren,
but I feel
don't worry, there's like after. Go ahead. Sis.
I know, but that's my point. Is like for me, I made a very conscious decision with a lot of things in my life. Going to college, being in the relationship that I was in, not being in that relationship, even with my like recent, back and forth to East Coast, West Coast. Like I've always had to be very conscious and cognizant of the fact that like, as a woman, as a Black woman, right, especially working in the space that I work in, I might not get that other chance. Like I got to do it right the first time. And I think
you're talking about professionally,
professionally and personally.
Okay.
And only because that's.
And what are your personal goals? Just so we're clear, you want marriage?
My
and
personal
children.
goals. I want marriage. I want children. Yes.
Family foundation.
I want all of that.
Great.
I don't even have a number of kids. Once we start, we start. I just want
we're not gonna get into the minutia of that.
But yes,
want to be a mother.
I would. Okay. I'm going to be an amazing mom. But I just feel like when you lead with the stuff that you lead with, it instantly turns the conversation negative. And for someone like me who is watching and learning and listening to you, it makes it where now I am defensive. I don't want to watch, listen, and learn. I don't hear the rest of what you're saying. So now I'm not being taught. And I should feel like I can listen to you and learn from you and not feel like you're the eye. And that's how it starts off when you instantly are telling me everything negative about what I already am facing every single day. And I think that that's a big part of it too, is like when you put certain truths in front of people, it hurts. People don't want to hear it. Sure. But beyond that, like you can't get around the infertility. The second thing was the market value, right? I don't agree. Like, I don't know where you were at 31, but for me, I feel like I'm just now getting to the space where like the people that I'm able to, or not even able to, but the people that I'm dating, the life experiences that I'm experiencing that are teaching me what I want, what I don't want. I'm right now in the best space that I've ever been in. And that wasn't me in college. I didn't know what I wanted in college.
Okay. My color, I don't like the way it's so orange, but okay. Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Bert 91. We back, baby. We back. Listen, I wanted to have a little bit of a conversation. I wanted to open up the floor. I do not want to just be myself. I wanted to hear your points of view. Okay. I want to be very, very real with you guys. I think, I would love to have many different opinions. I'm opening up the floor immediately because I know it's going to take you guys at least 5-10 minutes to warm up. So listen, warm yourself up, get your legs stretched, and get on this panel and have a conversation, because it's no fun when we have conversation, but you're chatting in the chat, but we don't hear your voice. I want to be able to hear it so we can have a little bit of a back and forth and have a real conversation. This is a topic that affects both parties. As much as it is addressing Black women, it affects both parties, right? So for this topic we're discussing, Ebony Williams has come out and said about how if women who are educated or who are looking to get educated, looking to get their degrees, looking to be in college and graduate and go on to do whatever they do in their life, they should be looking in college arenas at that point in time for their particular partner, right? And I think this is a great conversation because it does mean that does force us to really have a conversation around what is an ideal time. Have we got the ideal time now? Is the message being delivered correctly? Is it incorrect? The message is the message too harsh? What is it? And I think just listening to the lady from Breakfast Club, and I forgot her name, I do apologize. Listening to her rebuttal to a good sis Ebony Williams, I think it's quite interesting the part that she mentioned. She said she tried to take it on board, but couldn't really hear it the first time around because it was too harsh. And it's part of the reason why I said that you catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. It's important that as much as we're talking about you speaking and delivering your message anyhow, anyway, there is a way to deliver a message, even one that is hard to swallow, in a particular way that makes it feasible and palatable to the ears without it being a sugarcoat. You know what I mean? Same way that we do with children, that when you want to give them medicine, you kind of coat it with a little bit of sugar. You coat it that way so that it can be delivered and it can be accepted. And so I think what the young lady was trying to get across to Ebony, and I've said this before when I said about Ebony and the bus driver, is delivery is king and it's queen. And if you really want to get your message out there, then, and you really want to help, then deliver it in the right way. Now, if you want to go viral, fantastic. She's doing the right thing. She wants to go viral. Lulu, I see you in the background, but your thing is not connecting. So just double check that, Lulu. I can see you in the background, but it's not connecting. If you want to go viral, then by all means, say it however you want. But if you want to actually catch people and actually help them, then you got to do the right things. Now, the key thing here, the key thing with the situation, is that I know a lot of people will have strong opinions in the chat. Please, again, what I'm saying to you is jump on the live. Don't, jump on the panel. Don't let yourself stay in the corner. That's what I'm trying to say to you. Like, come and have your say. We want to hear different opinions, different thoughts as well. And we're going to talk about different things as well. So, I definitely want to be able to, be able to have a real conversation. Now, someone said that tone is, I see you, Lulu, now, you're now finally there. Tone is not important. I would say tone is important because it's a part of communication. Telling someone to shut up and be quiet are two different things. They are saying the same thing in terms of action, but they're two different things, right? The tone of your words, the use of your words. And tone is very important because I think we have to stop pretending. Both men get triggered by tone of women and women get triggered by the tone of men. Like, we get triggered by each other because the tone, we want it to be spoken in a way that actually you are thinking of the receiver as well. And so this is very important. I think tone has to be taken into account when you're delivering a message. And I think you have to be very, very, very conscious about the audience you're delivering a message to, both men and women. Okay, so that's also important as well. If you wouldn't speak to your boss that way, I wouldn't advise you to speak to a community of people that way when you're trying to get them to be on your side. You know, so but the thing is, it's not urgent though. We're not dying, 007. This is where we have to make it very clear. We're not dying. So this is not a message where we're dying from. This is a message of where people are having their preference being taken away. At that point, tone is important. We want to get the message across to people that yes, it's important, but we also want you to understand that we want it to be delivered. And that's always my focus about how we deliver stuff. Because what often happens is if you're not thinking about your tone, you really aren't thinking about the other person either. Then your message is not really a deliverance of love. It's really about you. It's almost like when people tell you that I want to tell you the truth. And really, it's not about the truth. It's about you feeling better about saying however you feel and saying it anyhow, anyway, and expecting me just to take it on board. Now, I'm not your son and I'm not your daughter. I mean, I'm a human being of equal status. So, yes, I expect you to say it in a particular way that grants me the respect as a human being that I am your equal and not your blood clot tissue on the floor you're stepping upon. You understand what I'm saying to you? Like, when people start doing that, it's like you have no respect. So when I'm saying that Ebony needs to think about her tone, why I'm saying that is you're losing the women. Just like when you were talking about the men and you were talking about bus drivers, I told you the exact same thing. I'm very consistent when it comes to tone and the use of certain words. Let's not do that, because what we do is we alienate people. Now, I don't get it twisted. There are going to be some people going to say, well, I like the harsh tone. I like it hard. Pause. I hear you, but you know, for the majority consensus to get people to understand what they're saying, I think we have to be cautious of tone. I think so. I think we should. I think it helps. You know, I think it helps. You know what I mean? So definitely, I think tone needs to be policed. Okay, let's get into this conversation. I got Lulu behind the scenes, and we'll open up the floor as well. But let me shout out some of my new members. Felicia, appreciate you as well. Thank you for jumping on board. Courtney as well. We appreciate you on board as well. Okay. All right. Appreciate it. Just to open up a chat and say to anybody here who's going to jump on board, I do police tone. So this is not a space where you can come in and say whatever you want to say. If you know you got one of those energies where you want to say whatever you want to say to the opposite sex, this is not the space. I will cut you off and I will dead you off. I haven't got the time. I want to make it very clear. As much as I want to tussle, I want to tussle with respect. So this is going to go for both men and women. Come, say your piece. But when you're talking to the opposite sex, I want you to understand this is not one of those spaces where you can start talking anyhow, anyway. I will cut you off. And I don't want to hear no conversation about, hey, no. I want to regulate it so we actually have a real good conversation. This is not about smashing someone over the head. It's about having real educated conversation. Now I've laid that out. So if anyone comes in later on and you hear me just mute them, you know why I've muted them. Okay? We keep it real kosher in this place and we respect each other because we want to have a real cool conversation. All right, cool. I got Lulu. I got Mrs. Z as well. Lovely. Appreciate you guys jumping on board. I'm sure some more will jump in as well. Lulu, you were first, so go and talk to me. What's your thoughts on this particular subject right now? Women, should they be getting married young, ladies? Should women be getting married young? Black ladies, should they be getting married young?
Ebony's tone is always wrong. Let's start there. Ebony makes good points. She's always in the ballpark of the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. Ebony's, she'll be in the neighborhood, but she takes a wrong turn every time. That's just Ebony. And I think even Lauren wasn't able to hear her for the point she was making. It kind of touched in an emotional way. So that's my take on Ebony. As far as I do think couples should build together. So I do think starting early is better. There's just a certain appreciation from being able to build and accumulate with someone that you don't have when you get it on your own. And then you're looking around like, oh, does everyone have their hand out? Does somebody want something from me? Do they really like me for me? When you know that person got it with you out of the mud, it's a different kind of appreciation. So that's my take on that. As far as that's for if you're in college or young, I think Ebony's take is a little elitist. I don't see why a college educated woman and a military man can't be together. It's both career fields and they can grow into something quite successful together. I don't understand what's with this, it has to be college college man, woman. And a lot of times, as far as the guys I know from college, they did wind up with one of the girls they were dealing with in college. But they're outnumbered. So you got about 7 to choose from. You can settle down with any one of those.
That's fair. Mr. Z, welcome to the conversation. Good to have you.
What's up, Coach? We've spoken before.
I know, Captain. We're talking this question. Obviously, Ebony Williams brought up an interesting point. We're asking this question: should Black women be marrying young?
I think Black women first. Shout out to Lulu, and she is right. Ebony's tone. You remember we're talking to an attorney who was she used to do beauty pageants. So Ebony been an attractive woman, then she became an attorney. So you're talking about a woman, you can't tell her anything, as she said herself, right? She and that was one of her comments to Lauren, like, if for those of you that watched the whole interview, when she told Lauren, like, if you think you that ish now, wait until you close on a $1.7 million home and it's in your name only. So she's telling Lauren, like, it might behoove you to meet a man now, or definitely when you were younger, so that at least he could bring you down in size every once in a while when you're doing too much. Because when you start acquiring what I'm acquiring, then no one's going to be able to tell you anything, right? So, and something I want us to recall, this is a long line of women trying to give women advice. Shahrazad Ali trying to give Iyanla Vanzant advice. Iyanla Vanzant wasn't trying to hear it. Iyanla Vanzant trying to give Ebony K. Williams advice. Ebony K. Williams wasn't trying to hear it. Now Ebony K. Williams is trying to give Lauren advice. Lauren is not trying to hear it. I agree with you, Kojo, about the tone, but I don't think the tone is the issue here. It's just that they don't want to hear it. Sometimes it doesn't matter how well you speak, the words you use, right? The tone of your voice, how slow or fast you speak, the enunciation of the words, the syllables. Like, I'm doing this on purpose, right? The person doesn't want to hear it. Now, for those of us that are men, we understand that sometimes when you have a conversation with some of the sisters, if you mess up on one period, a word hit too hard, they're going to hang you with that word because they didn't want to hear what you were saying anyway, right? So when it comes to Lauren's not trying to hear it. And that's okay. A lot of the other young women, but you have to understand, like, especially living in America, I was born and raised in America, in South Florida. Black women are just tired of not being upper middle class and above white women. They want that lifestyle. And they feel like Black men haven't afforded them that lifestyle. And so screw what everyone is telling. They always feel like they're being told to settle, right? And so when Ebony says what she says, it's like, well, you try to tell us to risk with college men that might not have it together. They definitely don't got it together in college, right? We know they're building towards something, but they don't have it together in college. They don't have it together exactly right after college, right? So I think for many, and I would love to hear more women speak about this, the hedging your bets thing, right? The taking a risk. That's why you see some younger non-Black women per se, they're willing to take that risk, right? With a 23, 24, 25-year-old. But even in America right now, new data is out. The average age for first-time marriages for women is 30. It's going up, right? And then when you hear about assortative mating, that's just a euphemism for women, elite women, college-educated women, mate guarding, right? So when men used to attend college more than women, men would marry, quote unquote, down. They married across the board. They married college-educated women and they married non-college educated women. Now that college-educated women outnumber college-educated men, now they're mate guarding. So they only want to marry college-educated men, right? And I agree with Lulu where it's like, why can't you marry potentially a person in the military or police officer? But how am I going to show off to my homegirls, right? I want the power couple dream. And what did Ebony K. Williams tell us? That white dude that has all that money that you chasing after, guess what? You got to be on command. Hey, we going to the south of France. I need you now. What about your career, right? You $150,000 in student loan debt, which probably the white wealthy dude paid off. But, you did all of this for this particular status that you wanted to acquire yourself and then meet the baller dude. But when you meet the baller dude, he tells you, oh, yeah, all that got to go on hold. I'm not your prop. You're my prop. Right. And I'll pause right there. I don't want to ramble too much. Go ahead.
No, I mean you're making some great points, Captain. I can't even lie to you. Yeah, you're speaking some real stuff. Lulu, do you wanna add or chip in there?
I agree with most of what Mr. Z said. I think that as far as the women triggering women thing goes, there's a old saying in the South, a hit dog, a holler. And that basically is what keeps happening when these women are triggering other women. I mean, basically, Ayanla called Ebony out on her elitism, and obviously that's an actual thing for Ebony, and she felt some kind of way about it. And as far as, and I think kind of the same thing almost happened with Lauren. It was this feeling like Ebony was basically presenting her message as, sorry, Lauren, you missed out, you lost out, you didn't, get on board in time. Now you're 32. And I think that did make her feel triggered. And 32 isn't old, or 30, or however old she is. Like she's not, ready to go buy a house full of cats yet. But this message of, oh, because you didn't get a man 8 years ago, you might not never find one now. I see how that could be very triggering for any woman over the age of 23. Like that's, if you waste time and graduate college. So again, it's just all about messaging. Marrying young wasn't, if marrying young or finding someone in college and when you're in the same peer circles was her message, she should have said that. Don't talk about, oh, sorry, sis, you missed out. You should have settled back then. Now just get ready to go ahead and get yourself a cat, because once you buy this $1 million home, nobody's going to want you. I see why Lauren felt the way she felt about it.
Lulu, can I give you something to consider, though? I really want us to also consider what Ebony was saying after that. Though, when you can afford the skybox by yourself, when you close on that $1.5 million property, right? Excuse me, she said $1.7 million property, then nobody could tell you ish, right? Don't also forget that DJ Envy looked over and saw that bag, and that was a Birkin. Cheapest Birkins are tens of thousands of dollars, right? So when you factor in America currently, 2/3 of men never earn more than $65,000 a year. That's right out the gate. I didn't say black men. 2/3 of men, period, in America don't earn more than $65,000. So that's 2/3 of men out the gate right there. Only about 10% of men earn six figures, so 100,000 plus. So what we're and I'm glad you brought up elitism, because we're speaking about upwardly mobile black women that are, and for Lauren to be 31, if I'm not mistaken, she's probably in the six-figure ballpark, if not just a little under. Ebony, we already know she's making good money, right? So it's very interesting to see, and this is much of the conversation going on between black men and black women, us average-ass black people somehow feeling traumatized by these elite black people in their conversation about what they're not going to settle for and what they ain't doing. So it's very interesting to see Lauren kind of trying to understand what Ebony is saying to her. And we're watching this, and then I'm reading comments once again from young black women that I know ain't making over 70 grand a year, right? But yet they're feeling traumatized by feeling like everyone's telling them to settle. Iyanla's telling them to settle. Now Ebony, who they thought was on their side, is telling them to settle. Taraji was telling them to settle. Carrie Hilson was telling them to settle. They always feel like they're being told. Who was it last week? Tyler Perry is telling them to settle, right? Like everyone's trying, like that's how black women are internalizing it. But no, the environment is saying, and I'm not trying to beat up on feminism when I say this. You fought for feminism, or at least your ancestors fought for feminism. Your foremothers fought for women to be able to go into the workforce, go into school, do their own thing at their own pace without being reliant on men. And now that the fruits of that have been being grown for the past 50 or so years, like second wave feminism on forward, now women are throwing a fit that you got what you wanted, right? You wanted the equality, you wanted the egalitarianism, you got it, right? Like 40% of women earn more than their male counterparts already. I didn't say black women, I said women in America. And yet the women are throwing a fit what you thought equality meant. Right? Like 1/3 of homes is going to be a man earn more than his wife. 1/3 of home is going to be a woman earn more than her husband. And then 1/3 of homes is going to be some type of equal, $1 here more, $1 there more. and women are the 2/3 of women that earn equal to their man or above their man are throwing a fit. Like, what you thought? And tying that to Lauren and Ebony K. Williams, that's much of the conversation right there. It's like, no, I don't want this. Well, this is the world that women fought for. I'm not even trying to be snarky when I say that. I mean, like, for real though. And I'll pause right there.
And just to add to that part, so the like you said, I want to make it very clear, because I think sometimes this conversation, when we add feminism, people think it's the whole of feminism. There are clear waves where there are clear objectives that get brought in that may convolute early objectives, right? So when I said this on the first live that I did earlier on today, I said that part of feminism, what was being added was the ability to choose. It wasn't necessarily about, it was the ability to choose, to be able to, if you want to work. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, you be a stay-at-home mom. The ability to choose, which I'm not against. I think that should be put on the table, right? That there should be ability to choose. And so that is a critical part, which I believe is also a part of life. And I don't believe, because I'm coming from a Christian perspective too, that I don't think that goes against what God would have wanted, right? But like you were saying, Mrs. Z, as well, a part of the egalitarianism is also the fact that once women come into the workforce, and I think this is why I said about messages being explained to its fullest. Once women come into the workforce and they have the ability to also work and earn similar, or at least let me put it as if I know that there's a wage gap between men and women, to earn similar or earn even more or earn slightly less, whatever you want to call it, it squeezes the market for them. Right?
Yep.
Once they start working, they've actually squeezed their own market. This is where I'm saying about the conversation that we have to be as honest, and I want to be as, I don't want to be brutal, but I want to be real about it. Once you start working, I said this earlier, once you start working, your level, because women are oftentimes hypergamous, they look for men who are bigger, better, and bolder than they are. And this is why you're going on to what Ebony Williams was saying, that once they get to a stage, they're not trying to date down. So at that, and it's nothing against them. They've always been that way. The only difference is their starting point their starting point for when they're going to get married has changed. Whereas beforehand, you came into the marriage and you were maybe not working, but maybe you worked out in the field, but nothing too crazy. You worked out, and then you came in, and your job will be housewife, look after the kids, maybe do one or two things. You might do a little side hustle, and that's it. Now you're starting on the level when you come into marriage. I've got my career on the take. I've got I'm earning a certain amount of money. I've got a certain lifestyle that I'm living.
That's it.
Now I can't lose the lifestyle, right? We call this pleasure plateaus. Once you get to a certain pleasure plateau, you don't want to go underneath it no more. Like if you earn 40K, you don't want to live a life of a 20K person. You're gonna feel some type of loss. So what happens is, unfortunately, once women come into the workspace, it squeezes the market. What we're experiencing now is a squeeze on the market. And the solution that women are trying to give us, which I've spoken about this before, is you're asking men to suddenly jump. And suddenly, if women can do it, men can do it. And I tried to make them understand that it doesn't work that way so quickly, because the speed that that women have come into the workforce,
we're talking about 50, 60
doesn't
years.
give us time. It doesn't give us enough time to change the circumference of the market. So in order for us to increase and create that distance between ourselves and you again, it takes some time, because you've done such work in that space of time. So I think, what you were just kind of saying there, that's what I just wanted to add to that point. Let me let Lulu jump in, and I'll let you jump back in again, Mrs. Z. Lulu, you got any contribution? And then I'll go to Mrs. Z.
Well, I think what you're saying is interesting. I think we're seeing a paradigm shift from what we experienced growing up. I mean, 70s, 80s, 90s, especially parenting, everyone taught their girls, you don't need a man. Like, don't depend on a man. You don't need a man. Now we're on another shift to where women are wanting a man, wanting a provider, wanting that provision that we were trained up to not desire nor need. We were taught to be ambitious. Girls could be anything, strive to be the president. And now we want to get back to traditional roles. And that's not going to be an easy transition, because it took us decades upon decades to even get here. And I guess it's probably has something to do with computers taking all the jobs. Now it's like, okay, now we can go sit back at home because the computers are going to have all the jobs anyway, but they can't deliver babies.
Just a question here that maybe can that can center focus a conversation, help maybe foster it a little bit. Men had a head start, so how are we all of a sudden behind? So maybe Mrs. Z can kind of address that comment there.
But we're not. Black men still earn more than black women. Black men still have higher credit scores than black women. Black men still employ more people than black women. Black men are still financially ahead we still earn more, contrary to popular belief, right? So the black men that are doing well are doing so much better that they're bolstering the numbers for the brothers that's in prison, for the brothers that's at home and their moms sitting on their mom's couch at 27 years old, right? So black men are doing both better and worse than black women, but the black men that are doing better are doing that much better, right? So black men still are doing better than black women, by for the aggregate. Here's the thing. Now going back to what Kojo was saying, the gap has closed. Now that's not exclusive to black men. That's across the board in the Western world. In the Western world, what you see is 60-40 split, or somewhere around 60-40 split college enrollment, women to men. Across the Western world, it's numbers similar to that. In the black community in America, particularly, it's closer to 70-30, right, than 60-40. Now that causes a squeeze. Now black men still earn more, and obviously black men are in less debt because they didn't go to college or university, maybe, so they don't have that $30,000, $60,000, or $100,000 in student loan debt on top of that. That's number one. Number two, when we speak about marriage, and I'm glad that Lulu brought this up, 26% of poor Americans are married, 39% of middle-class Americans are married, and 56% of upper middle class and above, according to the American Enterprise Institute. These numbers are a smidge old, though. They're like 2018 numbers, 2017 numbers, so we're like 6 years out, but I'm pretty sure they're not that far off. Now, not only do you see that people that are more well-off are more likely to be married, the divorce rate, they're least likely to get divorced, right? Exactly. So what we've turned marriage into is an elite institution. And so it makes sense that women like Ebony K. Williams sound the way they do, and women like Lauren sound the way they do, right? Now, I'm glad that Ebony also mentioned in vitro and the fact that it set her back $50,000. Most black women don't got it like, most women, period, don't got it like that, to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on this procedure, and it still might not work, right? Most people across the planet don't have $50,000 laying around to have themselves artificially inseminated and have a child in this process because they can't make it work. What people usually do is pair up with someone for all of 2 nanoseconds, just enough to have the baby, and the second the baby could say one word or is able to take one step, okay, all right, we're breaking up. Wait a minute. Right? So I'm saying all that to say to the brother, or whoever that was, it might have been sister, black men still earn more, and men in general still earn more than women. And much of that is because we just put in more hours, to be frank with you. Mr. Z himself, I'm doing like 70 something hours a week, right? I make about double as much as my lady, right? So, that's much of the reason why. But yeah, I mean, when we hear these conversations going on with mainly elite people, I want us to be careful not to internalize their trauma and their issues, right? Although we do have our own issues as everyday average people or average earning people, maybe a little bit above average earning people, but I don't want us to internalize the issues of Ebony K. Williams, who is calling men, and black men in particular, mediocre because she's looking for elitism. Right, you're speaking to a woman who was with a white dude for years that has a wealth of a few $100 million, and he had staying in some type of condo that was $20-something thousand a month, something crazy. So you're speaking to a woman that wants to live that particular life, and I want us to be careful not to internalize her traumas for, admittedly, her saying like she's going on dates and they're telling her to put the gavel down. She said that to Iyanla. Right? She's going on dates and her dates are like, yo, you're too much, So I want us to be careful with this, but at the end of the day, when you hear Iyanla speak, I'm not Iyanla, sorry. When you hear Ebony speak, when you hear Lauren speak, understand we're speaking about women that are essentially reaching the market cap number one of their blackness, right? This is where black women run right into the wall of anti-blackness in this country, in America in particular, right? Where you might have earned more than your average black man and your average white man, honestly, your average man, period. And now the elite white men are showing you their ass. Excuse my language, right? Those are like, there's a handful of brothers up there. There's a couple of Latinos. There's Asian men, and there's obviously the largest portion are white men. And it like Ebony told Lauren, like, that swirling thing sounds nice, but I did that. Right? So, I'll pause right there.
Appreciate it, Mr. Z. Lulu, did you want to chime in?
Sounds to me like Ebony is struggling with something I think a lot of black men run into in America. You strive, you work, you break your neck, then you go into the workforce, and white men still treat you like a black man. Ebony felt like she could strive to become independent and wealthy and rich and get all these titles and accolades, and now she's dating men, and these men look at her and go, oh wait, you're still a woman with boobs. What's I just need you to sit there and be a woman with boobs. And she wants to be seen for what she's earned and what she's done. And that's just unfortunately not possible at those levels, because those men don't care what you have. They can change anybody's life.
I agree with Lulu on that. And that's
That's right. I just want to adjust the room. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming into the chat, fantastic. We have over 260 people in the room. Fantastic. Let's I haven't seen anything messages, but I want to remind everybody here, we keep it cute, we keep it classy, we keep it educated around here. So if you want to have a conversation, be respectful in the chat as well. We are talking right now about whether black women should get married young, based upon the conversation that Ebony Williams brought to the table. And so if you do have an opinion and you want to have your say, the link is attached right now, is at the top, is pinned. So you can click on it and you can join the conversation. So if you do want to join the conversation, click on it. Otherwise, please don't ask for having new callers when you're not joining. Yeah. Let's not do that. Okay? Don't ask for anyone else to call in if you're not calling in. You know what I mean? Yeah? And let's appreciate the people that have come on the panel and have actually decided to actually have their say and, put themselves on the chopping block to tell their opinion. Okay? All right. So listen, let's get back into some of the conversation again. Mrs. Z, you wanted to add something to the conversation.
I just want us to think about these things. Kojo, you already know, like, I'm data heavy, right? Numbers heavy. And obviously there's always some opposing numbers, or, research is always moving but I do that to kind of ground the conversation, because oftentimes we have like our anecdotes, or what a cousin sister brother said, or what a cousin sister brother went through, or, and it skews our worldview on just the conversation. I don't think the conversation, and I have not experienced the conversation between black men and black women in person being as stark, right? And being as dark, quite frankly, as it is online, right? It's not as depressing as it is online. Although I will say what's going on online, it may be exaggeration of what's happening in real life, but some of this is happening in real life. Some of these conversations are being had in real life, or unfortunately not being had in real life. But when you see people like Ebony, like I said, Tyler Perry just a couple weeks ago, exactly, these are elite, well-off black people, and especially for the Ebonys and the Laurens, their complaint really is, where are the men on my level? And like, you have surpassed. Look, once you pass, if you ever look at the numbers, like who earns what in America, once you pass about $70,000 in America, you just start leaving everybody. And once you pass 100, you like skyrocket above everybody. And God forbid you're earning 150, 200, 250. You're just way above everyone else. So, if you're a black woman born and raised in America and you're earning a 150, 200, you're in entertainment, the circle you're around, those are the people with the money. Once you step out of that circle and you're with everyone else, like, look at that. If anyone ever looks at the median income in America, state by state, you'll be surprised. $35,000, $36,000, $38,000 a year.
Even 33.
But
yeah, you're talking about state by state.
Even 33, exactly, like state by state. So like, when you hear these women like complain about men not being on their level, understand this is not your life. I get it, black women, you feel you're living vicariously through them, and it's like, why are we being told to settle? Like, sis, like, let's be clear. The median, the average income for black women, I think in America is something like 42 or something like that. But that's average. I mean, the women on top are pulling that number up. The median is way closer to $30,000 a year. I mean, half above, half below. Same thing with black men. I think the average is some 48. It's a few $1,000s more than black women. But then the median is right back down there in the 30s, right? So like when we have these conversations, let's not let these people that are struggling, like even with the men that are struggling to find women to appreciate their wealth. Yeah, but look at the circle you in. She got her own, right? So I want us to be careful with that, when we listen. And as you can see with Ebony, she told Lauren, like, what comes with the elite man, particularly even the elite white man, is, hey, I don't want to hear none of that. I'm going to South of France, jump on the plane, let's go. Oh, I got somewhere to be in California. So I got somewhere to be in Florida. So I'll pause right there.
I just wanted to add. So I was, me, yeah. I try to be as balanced as possible. So I was on, I think I was on YouTube the other day, and someone had done a compilation of TikToks by black women. Now, you guys know I don't play into the race war, but sometimes I like to talk about what happens, right? And the person had collated several black women, about 5 or 6 black women on TikTok. No, it's not every black woman. So not every black woman. 5 or 6 black women. And and this wasn't even about elitist white men. This was about just normal interracial dating. Do you know what each one of them said? Hey, the white man won't take that attitude you give. I was confused. I was like, wait, what? Why did every single one of them say that attitude? They won't accept that attitude. I was like, wait, hold on a minute. This is me being real. I'll get the video. I'll get the video another time. I'll do the video for you guys. I promise you, when I came across it, I was kind of shocked because my disposition was, when people say that, I'm like, I feel like we're doing too much. Mm-hmm. But the person had collated 5 or 6 TikTokers who are promoting interracial relationship, and the first one they said was,
I know exactly what video you're speaking about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then
I know exactly what I saw it too.
Outside. You can't, attitude, you got to turn, they don't play with that attitude. I said, then if that's what they're telling these people when they're interracially dating, what are we getting? But anyway, what I'm trying to say in this instance, right, is according to what you're saying of your point, I also agree this point, right, which is that a lot of this conversation is lost because it's not in our stratosphere. But the problem with this conversation is that the people at the top of the stratosphere trickle their madness down to those who are at the bottom. And if you're tapped into social media all your entire life and you don't tap into real life offline conversations with the opposite sex, it's both men and women, by the way. If you don't tap into the opposite sex offline, then you will believe the very things that these people are saying to you, right? And so what's interesting about it is, like I've made a point that you've made before as well, Mr. Z, which is that when you have this conversation about Tyler Perry, good sister Ebony and stuff, their stratosphere is completely different. And so they have a different echelon of conversation. We're not in that echelon. The majority of us, and this is why I think the stats are important to kind of bring people back to groundedness. A lot of times this argument about not finding men on the level is an elitist conversation in a positive way. You make good enough amount of money that you now have a problem. The opposite gender are not so many that you can have a plethora of options. That's what it is. So what's interesting about it is that the argument then becomes about those who are making really good money, and them struggling to find a plethora of options in that pool. Yep. The rest of us who are making normal money, you're not struggling. They're men are there. When I say not struggling, I don't mean that you're not going to find. It's not like it's but what I'm saying is your complaints necessarily isn't exactly the same because you're on a different bracket of finances. But yeah, when these conversations happen, normally times, it's oftentimes the very elite kind of trickling down their manners. It's a bit like when I think wasn't Quavo, who was it that said it? Well, I think one of the Migo brothers at this point in time was like, if you don't buy your girl a Birkin bag.
Oh yeah, no, that was Sweetie. That was Quavo's ex-girlfriend. Yeah, Sweetie was like, if he don't buy you a Birkin, and I just remember I saw the same clip you saw, Kojo, and I just remember telling myself, in what world are not even just up average, forget average, okay, fine, above average men? You think $100,000 a year men could afford a $40,000 bag? Are you crazy? Like, and when she said that, I just was like, and like, you gotta know there's some 16-year-old, 20-year-old, 22-year-old, 25-year-old women listening to her and saying, yeah. And I'm like, do y'all even know what the price of that? Like, the cheapest Birkins are? Not even the most expensive, the cheapest Birkins. Wow. But she said that and she meant it. And like, you gotta know there's some women that they heard that and they believed it. But it's something you said about race, and we have to be very clear here. So there's a book out called The Dating Divide, and it was published a couple years ago. PhDs in sociology. So they've done research mainly on online dating, but a little bit on offline dating. And what they found is white men get responded to the most across the spectrum. So women of color respond first to white men and then men of their respective races. That includes black women, right? So although when you talk to... Say it again?
What does that mean, respond? What does that mean?
So that means if a white man initiates and a black man initiates, your average black woman will respond to the white man first. Your average Latina will respond to the white man first before she responds to a Latino. Your average Asian woman will respond first to the white man, then to a Asian man, right? Contrary to popular belief, guess what? Black men, Latino men, and Asian men do not respond first to white women, right? So I know, yeah, and remember, these are PhDs. So what they do is they just pull all the information off of the website. Right, they get it allowed or whatever. They go to the higher ups and say, "Hey, can we pull this information?" Yeah, go ahead, and they pull it. So they don't even ask you. So you don't get a chance to start lying and equivocating and well, what happened was no. Let me see what you're. Oh, okay. These people are responding to these people. These people are talking to these people. These people are initiating with these people. Now, why that matters in this conversation about race and what you brought up, which I saw that video also. The young lady at the end that said, you know, if he tell you we got to go jogging at 5 o'clock in the morning, then you better be ready, right? And you can't treat white men the way you treat black men, right? Men. And
I was so
and she said it so blatantly. The girl in the beginning of the video was like, "Hey, you know, be pleasant, crack a smile. You might have to initiate all the things that you don't do for black men. You might have to initiate. You might have to be kinder." You tie that entire conversation into what we're speaking about when it comes to Lauren and Ebony K. Williams in their particular class position. What we have is obviously the legacy of colonialism, slavery, Jim Crow that black people are still carrying in the Western world. And what's happening is because we're about 50 or so years out of Jim Crow in America and about 70 or so years out of colonialization, coming from, you know, brothers from the continent and maybe the Caribbean and sisters also, obviously. I think oftentimes we forget that we're only 2 seconds out of Jim Crow and colonialization. And we want what we want, and we want it now. We want to live this particular life that was sold to us and advertised to us over the past 50 or so years, and we want it now, right? So why can't we live in the burbs next to Amy and Chad, right? Why can't we send our kids to exclusive schools, right? The elite institutions. Why? Essentially what I'm saying is I understand where Ebony is coming from, which is, like I said before, I want to be able to practice and I want to have the social and political power of upper middle class white women, right? And that's why I call black men mediocre en masse, right? Because if you're not elite, then you're mediocre. And I mean mediocre in a pejorative way. Now, she tried to say that she didn't mean it that way, but she meant it that way, right? And that's why she used it again in this interview. And she clearly said it in a pejorative way in this interview. And she did not try to, you know, retract what she was saying or the way she said it. So, landing, I want to be very clear, like when it comes to race and women and race and men, we do care about these things, although we say we don't. right? Because we're living in a late stage capitalist society, and like conspicuous consumption and status and being able to show off, for some, it damn near becomes a necessity. And so if I can't have the elite black man, then of course the elite white man will do. And it's even better because he's white, right? He's white in a white supremacist society on a white dominated planet. And if he's well off, oh my God, what can you tell me? You know? And what Ebony was telling Lauren is, hey, I did that. And what she was telling to the, female audience is, I did that. I'm telling you, it comes with its own challenges, right? And I'll pause right there.
No worries. Lulu, jump back in for me, sis. What's your contribution? What's your thoughts after hearing all of this? Okay, Lulu says she'll be in the chat. No worries, hold on. Lulu says she'll be in the chat. This Queen.
Hi, Kojo. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good, thank you. What's popping?
Just listening.
Give us your opinion. What's your thoughts? I don't know if you've heard the conversation previously to this, but give us your thoughts.
Yeah, I wish we could just stay on topic because I feel what she said, bottom line, applies to everybody, every woman, every elitist, every average lady. And that is, the earlier, the better. Not too early, of course, but the earlier, the better, if you want children. Because if you start this earlier, you get prepared for it earlier. Your mind kind of goes towards, okay, I need somebody, even if you don't find them in college, but if you start looking then, by the time you're 25, 27, you've kind of got the ball rolling. People who are starting at 30, 32, it does take time. It does take time to find somebody. And you might find yourself with all those problems like infertility, maybe you're in the wrong location and you see it too late. So I don't disagree with what Ebony was saying. I get it. Her tone is always off. But sometimes let's just put the tone aside and get the message and be content with that. I think she's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, cool. Thank you, this Queen. Yeah, I mean, I think, that there's, I think there's a good case for this. That if, again, I think a good point that you made there again is we have to put down this marker, which I think Ebony did very well. And I think she did a very good job in terms of putting the marker down. This is specific if you want to have children and a family. I think that's a precursor that's very important. If you don't, then by all means do whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, do whatever you want to do. But she was very specific in saying that if you're somebody who wants to get married, wants to have children, then yes, then this is very important because you want to do this young because of the fact that the market, it changes as you get older. She made a point that, at her particular age that, she's going to have to make different decisions, even to a point now where she is going to be having a child without a man, which is another conversation for another debate, which I don't agree with. But again, I think she made some good markers as listening down in terms of who specifically she is talking to. So if you don't want to be married and you don't want children, you can't complain about what she said because it's not for you. It's specifically for the people that are looking to have that particular lifestyle. What she's saying is, especially, and then she narrowed it again, those of you who are going to, obviously, again, those of you who are getting your degrees. So again, it was even more specific. So for those of you who are not trying to get your degrees and, whatever, maybe not. I think more, you can say more if you're more career minded, if you want to call it that, yes. Right? So those who are more career minded and want to get their degrees as well, want to focus on building their kingdom up, their queendom up in that space, then what she was letting you know was, hey, look, if these subset of people, you want to be trying to look for your partner early. That's what she was saying. So I think she made a really good point because she specified it. She didn't just say all women and, every black woman. She made it very specific so that that those specific groups of people that are being addressed could be able to get there. You know what I mean? And I think it was a good summation in that particular space. Before you go, Mr. D, let me just address the room again and just reset the room. If anybody has any thoughts, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't do Rambo in the chat. Let's do some Rambo on the panel, guys. Okay, all right. Every time we do these conversations, people do Rambo in the chat, but then they'll have no Rambo when you come on the panel. You know what I mean? And when I say Rambo, I mean come and say your piece. Doesn't mean come and blow everybody up. But if you have got a point, you got an opinion, you got a thought process, come click on that link. It's already pinned up. Come have your say. Contribute towards the conversation. And let's add to this conversation as well, so that we can actually get different points of view. Because I'm seeing people saying I don't agree, but if you don't come up and say you don't agree, you know what I mean? Like it's not going to add to the conversation. You know what I mean? So I'm saying to you, if you've got a different point of view, come. We give people space to talk. We don't cut across them. We let them finish their point of view. This ain't one of those spaces where you're going to be bullied and harangued and pushed off. We were encouraging conversation. We're fostering it. So please do come on, click on the link, get involved. Just before we continue on, shout out to Mo for joining also the membership as well. We appreciate you. If you see the green star by somebody's name in the chat, it means they've joined the membership. They are part of the family, part of the team. It's £1, it's $1. It's not something that's going to break your bank, okay? Because I want to see you guys marry men who are going to make that 100K, and I don't want to steal all your money. So, but no, all just aside, I want you guys to be involved. And if you want to be part of the family, click on that money sign and sign up to the membership as well. We'd love to have you guys in this space as well. Okay. Yes, Mr. Z wanted to add something. Go for it.
Yes, and thank you. Okay, so first, I think we have to work on, because our parents were raised a little different, right? They walked into adulthood with spouse and children in tow, right? Like they're getting married at 20 and 19 and 22 and 23, right? Because of the era that we're in, late stage capitalism, neoliberalism, and allowing economists to dictate social affairs, marriage for us is at the end of adulting, right? So we were raised, go to school, get your education, and that's both the men and the women, but specifically the women, that includes Black women. And at the end of having all your ducks in a row, right, and at the end of quote unquote adulting, that's when you seek your spouse and that's when you have your children. And what you see, once again, not only from the marriage rate, but the birth rate. The birth rate in America across the board is somewhere around 1.8, 1.9 children per woman. For those of you that don't know, you need 2.1 to maintain a population. And that includes for the Black community. For white society, it's 1.67, which, by the way, once again, below birth rate. And for the Black community, it's 1.8 and some change. So you see younger people and people in general having less children. Then, like I said, with the marriage numbers, 26% of poor Americans are married, 39% of middle class, 56% of upper middle class and above. Once again, American Enterprise Institute. So Mr. Z isn't pulling that out of his rear end. So you see this theme going on. So I'm tying that to the conversation of who's getting married and who's staying married. Once again, the better off the man is, the less likely that couple is to get divorced, right? So their marriages last longer on average, and they're less likely to get divorced. Addressing something, I glanced at the comments, and someone was saying Nigerians earn the most. So you're talking about a subsect of a minority group, right? Nigerian Americans are Black, right? Last time I checked, and they're part of the Black community, and so they get counted with the Black community, and there's not enough of them to bolster that number too much, right? So yes, you are correct. Nigerians are the most educated group in America, and they earn significant amount, but there's not enough of them to bolster the number. Number one. Number two, that is much of the reason, and I am not ADOS FBA, but that is much of the reason why I want there to be Black immigrants and their children and their grandchildren, and then Black Americans in the census forms, so we can separate that number out, because I think white racist America is hiding, not doing for ADOS FBA, behind Black immigrants. So I'm glad that you brought that up, whoever you were in the comments, because for those of you that know, I think the Harvard new president is a Haitian descent woman, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. So I've heard, and I think what America is doing, even with Barack Obama, is hiding screwing over Black American ADOS FBA by doing for, and remember, I'm not ADOS FBA, by allowing us to make money and do well, and then be like, look, we ain't racist. Look, the Nigerian American is like over here, and the Haitians are doing all right over there, and the Jamaicans, like, I mean, how can we be racist, right? So, but I'll pause with that because that has nothing to do with nothing. But with the Ebony K. Williams and the Lauren conversation, I find these type of conversations fascinating because once again, it's watching people live vicariously through Ebony K. Williams. I'm like, bro, she's talking about closing on a $1.7 million property. How do you feel like she's telling you to settle? Right? Like, you probably earn 30 something, 40 something, maybe even 50 something $1,000 a year, and you feel like she's telling you to settle? Right? So, and she was very clear with Lauren, look, the college years are the best years. And Lauren told her, look, my dating situation now is the best it's ever been. And I could tell Ebony is like, what Ebony's pretty much trying to tell her is, I thought the same thing. When I was your age, I literally thought the same thing. But as I said before, Shahrazad Ali tried to speak to Iyanla Vanzant. Iyanla Vanzant wasn't trying to hear it. Iyanla Vanzant tried to speak to Ebony K. Williams. Ebony K. Williams not trying to hear it. And Ebony K. Williams is trying to speak to Lauren, and Lauren can't hear it. Right? As the world turns. I'll pause right there.
Thank you. Sorry about that. My laptop wasn't clicking. This Queen, go for it. Jump in for me. What's your thoughts?
I agree with him partly, but I want to say that whatever your level as a woman, even if you're earning 40 or 50K per year, I don't know what people earn in the US, nobody wants to go under, as you were saying earlier on. It doesn't mean that just because you're not a millionaire that you don't have standards or you don't have requirements. Women have a right to have a decent life. They have a right to go to school and have a better education, have a better salary, and want things. If you can't reach that as a man, that's fine. She's not for you. But it doesn't mean that we don't have a right to want what we want as women. And can I say something about this feminine issue? Like, you guys got what you asked for. That's not what women asked for. Women wanted to make a salary, pay, have a decent earning, have a home. If they had kids, pay for those kids, their schooling, because most of the cases, for some of them, they didn't have their husbands there or their boyfriends there or whatever. So, I mean, for us to say, because now you're earning a lot, this is your fault. I think that's a really weak argument. I don't appreciate it at all. Men should strive to do better as women are, and we are actually better if we're all striving together. It doesn't mean that one is above the other. We are just working together. Our parents worked. Our parents worked together. Most of us have parents that worked. Both went to work, and people did what they could to get to make an earning, and there was nothing wrong with that. So why is it wrong now when women want to have something of their own? I really don't get that. I really don't get that. I can agree with Ebony, and I can still say, sorry. I can agree with Ebony, and I can still say that women have a right to make a decent living. I think the two don't have to antagonize each other. The two actually go hand in hand very well. And if you're in college, please look around. If you're young, look around. If there's nobody, fine. Nobody is forcing you. But don't be naive and just walk through it, because believe me, almost every other race is doing what she's talking about. Indians, Arabs, white people, they're all doing it. We saw them when we were in uni. And we are the only ones who are just like, I'm going to find somebody later. It's not that easy. If you do, you're blessed. But don't get into that red race on purpose, like without even trying. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Miss this Queen, let me okay. I agree with you that our parents did it. You're absolutely correct. when I said what I said, it's the market cap, because you have, consider that men still earn more than women. Black men in America, at least in America, still earn more than black women in aggregate. Black men still, as a lower percent, lower percentage of the population. There we go. They still earn more. So the issue isn't that black men aren't earning enough. They're not earning even more, right? That's why I brought up conspicuous consumption earlier, to say this is about lifestyle. We're no longer talking about being stable. We're talking about opulence and nice things, right? I don't want the fully loaded Camry. I want the E-Class, right? I don't want the Honda Accord. I want the BMW 5 Series. So I agree with you that it shouldn't be this competition and this antagonism. I completely agree with you on that. What I'm saying is, what is being told, either overtly or subtly, is stability isn't good enough. That is why even Ebony K. Williams is using the word mediocre. And she's not saying it as just the simple definition. She's using it as a pejorative, right? Because this is much of the issue that we're having. And Kojo spoke to this earlier. Once enough women enter the workforce, they are literally undercutting the finances of the men that they say they want to earn a certain amount to court them, right? Your boss isn't going to be like, oh, by the way, we hired women, so dear men, we're going to pay you 20% more. But that would be sexist as hell, and he would get slapped with a lawsuit like the next day, right? So like, that's what's going on in the market space, in the job market. Like, that's a fact. As a matter of fact, under the age of 30, women earn more than men under the age of 30, at least in America. I don't know about Britain or other nations in the Western world, but in America, women under the age of 30 earn more than their male counterparts, which is funny because men under the age of 30, 1/3 of them didn't have sex last year. You see what I'm saying? You see how this, like, all of this ties together? All of this, like, all of this ties together. So I agree with you, this queen, that it shouldn't be an antagonism. You're absolutely correct about that. But what we're dealing with, remember, we live in a capitalist society. Like, money makes this thing go. And for some people, and I would argue for many people, and like Lulu was saying earlier, what's wrong with being with a military man if you're a college educated black woman, or what's wrong with maybe being with a police officer? It's the way it looks, right? In America, you could get a nicely loaded F-150 for the same price as a BMW 3 Series or a Benz C-Class. But a lot of us would rather go with the C-Class because of the name, the style, the prestige, even though it's just a C-Class, it's not an E or an S, right? But the prestige of it all. I bring that up to say, like, when you live in a society, in quote unquote advanced societies, the way something presents, the way something looks matters. And what Ebony is speaking to are college educated women who want men who they deem as being on their level. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's not just the finances. Okay, yeah, I could be with the military man that might have some years in the military. He earns the same amount as me or even more than me. But I want the white collar dude that goes to work in a suit every day. Nothing wrong with that. Mr. Z used to wear suits. And that, you know, he drives this type of car and he lives in that type of neighborhood, right? I can't fault women in general, black women specifically, for wanting that. But when the majority of men that work some type of blue collar, then once again, that's a squeeze, because not only are you looking for the finances, but you're looking for the finances to come to you a certain way on top of that, right? So that adds even more of a pressure for these particular type of men. So if you're a white, imagine this, you're a 6'2", 6'3", chisel chin, still got your hair, right? $80,000 plus black man. Imagine the women that's throwing themselves at you, right? Or white man, because oftentimes we hear this thing where, like, oh, other women don't have to compete for their men. Yeah, they do. Right? Like, if you are this guy, do you understand, like, what the dating market looks like for you? As I said, the dating divide was very clear, right? And these are like PhDs. This is not no anecdotal evidence about who dates who. No, people that didn't, who we seek and why, right? So I agree with you, this queen. I'm just kind of adding on to what you're saying by saying, like, these things don't exist in a vacuum. you're correct that it shouldn't be this antagonism, but I think this exists because we want to present a certain way, and like, much of our esteem and our self-esteem comes from, the lightweight competition between brother and brother, sister and sister, cousin and cousin. And who doesn't want to be the one to show up at grandma's house? Hey, this is my wife, this is my house, this is my car, or this is my husband, this is my car, this is my wife, these are my kids. And yeah, we're doing better than you. Right? Like, you don't want to say it overtly, but that little subtle hint of like, yeah, look, and I pause right there.
Yeah. And I think, what we're, just to reset the room again, if anyone's joining in as well, just to kind of maybe address some things, specifically, I think what we're coming to a point is, first we're kind of trying to make a deduction about the market that we're actually seeing at the moment, and where majority of people actually sit in that particular market. Most of us are average earners. Some of you, I'm sure, will sit in here, and I'm sure some of you are 70 to 80 to 90 to 100 band. And you are touching the upper echelons when it comes to society and the finances as well. I think what's also important to understand is, I do agree. I do believe that Black women should marry young, but I give the caveat: no point telling them to marry young if there's no Negroes to marry. So the conversation does have to be balanced. I cannot ask women to marry young and the men are not ready to be married either. That would be a detriment to the market itself. Would have women, like I said earlier on in my first live, that having women qualified, ready to be married, and then there's no suitors for that position. That would make the situation much more difficult. And so I think the message also, whilst I believe that we should marry young, I'm also a person that sees the logistics issues of having women ready to marry and no men in their group being ready to marry. Now, someone might say they should marry somebody who is older. And whilst I do agree with that once again, because those men are usually more sturdy, I'm also quite aware that was not the messaging that we were giving. Right. So we are saying, according to what Ebony Williams is saying, and what I've heard others say, that this is a prime time for women to find a man. So what I'm saying is that whilst I've spoken for an hour and 15 minutes, just like I did in my first live, there needs to be a conversation about what kind of conversation then are we having with young men, So yes, we've explained it. Some of you might not agree. All right, let's talk now about what's the messaging that we have to give these young men, because if they're going to college and I'm going to college, and you're going to college as a woman, but if I'm not being told that message, that rhetoric of, when you get to college, start looking around for your wife, because this also helps us. This also helps us be able to be ready for that opportunity to take it ahead, and also because it actually aids us financially. We do better as married people, right? You look at the most wealthiest people in the world, and you realize marriage is one of those institutions. Not only does it do good well for business, it usually does well for our health too. We usually die before the women, so
So Kojo,
yes,
do 21, 22-year-old women, and I'm not going to limit that just to Black women, but including
Absolutely.
Black women, do they want to marry the 22, 23-year-old Black man, the man, right? That's in college, right? Because remember, this is the struggle. There's certain people in your comments that saying, we watched our grandparents struggle, we're not going through that. So that financial, that's slugging up that financial ladder, right? And the occasional getting getting let go from the job, that occasional being fired, like, I submit to you that both men and women find themselves in a difficult position with this. That's why women tend to marry older, because the guy that's 5 years older than you, 6 years older than you, has had that head start to acquire certain amount of resources. The guy your same age might be more physically fit, he might be more physically attractive, but when you put everything together, who are you going to choose at 28 years old? The 28-year-old, with the six-pack still, or the 35-year-old with a bit of a belly, but he earns 20, 40, 50, 60,000 dollars more than you, right? And we actually have the answer to that question, but go ahead.
But I think we've jumped ahead ages though, because we're talking about college. So
Yes.
if it both parts, so that's what I'm saying. So and I'll let you jump in this, Queen, in a second. So college aspect, whereas I understand what you're saying, right? Get to that 28 women are often looking for, and I agree. But what I'm saying is, at the college level, it's about mindset. So the mindset's very important, right? Because I think some of the people, when we started the beginning of the conversation, some of the ladies were saying, you know what, they know some men who married their college sweetheart.
Yes.
People do marry
Me
their
too.
college sweethearts because they have a marriage mindset. That's what I'm saying. So that mindset needs to be installed in those young men so that when they do get to 21, 22, 23, they're thinking on that wavelength. But at that point, none of us ain't nothing. So at that point, you don't have a pot to piss in. I don't have a pot to piss in. So there isn't really any of that kind of, well, you're not stable. Those girls at 21, 22 that are looking for the crazy finances, they're not even in a conversation. You don't need them kind of women. We don't need them kind of women. You, as a man, I don't even want to encourage you to be going for this kind of women. Those women that want lifestyle at 21, 22, X them, they're not a part of it, right? But you're at college and you're educated, which means you have some intelligence. You're not looking at just a man paying all your bills. And when I say that, I don't mean that you don't want a man to pay all your bills. What I'm saying is you're not thinking about you're thinking about how to be self-sufficient in some aspect, right? And so the kind of people you're looking for is similar mindset. So what I'm saying is there has to be a different message that also goes to young men to get your ass in shape and think about marriage, because you should marry young, find your wife, because we're also suffering on their end, right? We're also suffering because the internet is a litany of men who are not married.
Yes,
they're crying on the streets talking about these women, these modern women, But the point is, your ass should have been married early too, because by the time they get to 30, 35, they don't want to know your ass either, right? So we gonna have that same issue. So I'm saying that it's a twofold issue. I agree. I think we've absolutely nailed the women to the cross, and I think absolutely we should have. And now we have to talk about the men and what is our messaging we have to give them, because there's no way at 21, 22, 23, and you don't have a marriage mindset. Because you have to
it's
think
hard to have a marriage mindset, Kojo, when all the women are chasing after you, because it's only one out of, it's you versus 3 other women in the college or university campus. And I'm bringing that up just to include the 60-40 split in college enrollment for men and women. Like that means something. And, if it's you and you have your head in the books, let's be very clear, but also, not as remember, 60-40 split across the board, not just for Black people in America, 60-40 split across the board. That's a difficult fight to tell. Kojo, you was a young man too, to be 22, 23 with all the hormones going and testosterone going. And then it's one of you on the college campus, and for every 2 women, maybe, right? 3, because that's on average 60-40 split. That's not particular universities, right? Particular universities, that's closer to 65-35. So, and I agree with you, by the way. I'm not saying that we shouldn't socialize our young men to be married. I'm saying I know how difficult of a fight that's going to be because of the environment that they're going to be in, right? On these college campuses. And remember, the women are trying to lock the door behind them. So if we're going to socialize the women like this, they don't want to end up with non-college educated men. So they're going to try to lock the door behind them. And just like these women say, we're not going to compete. Don't tell us to compete. You're going to have to compete. You're going to have to compete, right? And we're going to have to socialize those men to see the women that are best for what they want and end up with those women, right? End up with those women. But I think we're still going to have an issue until we get more men into college and university campuses. That's going to be a difficult push, because if you poll some of these men, first, they're going to tell you college and university is too expensive. I don't want that debt. Secondly, when they do these soft polls on this, it's a lot of, these spaces are a little bit too feminine for me. I don't want to be told every day how horrible of a person I am because I was born with, testosterone and I don't want to be crude on your channel, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, and I'll pause right there. I'm sorry, Queen, and I'll let you go.
That's good. Queen, do you want to add something, and I'll jump back and go for it, Queen. Thank you for that, Misty.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Kojo. It's not about the 35-year-old or the 28-year-old being fit and masculine. It's about finding somebody who has integrity, who loves God, loves you, and has ambition. So even if he has nothing and he's 25 years old, that's fine. That's enough for him to get him somewhere, you know. So I think women also need the message of stop chasing the money, stop looking for an older man with a big tummy and a bunch of cash, because you are discardable with such people. Get somebody who's yours, who you're going to work with, you're going to strive with, you're going to grow with together. And that's more the message that people need to get. And the same with the men, the young boys. Get a girl who's got your back, not necessarily ride or die, but who's also sensible, has integrity, and has a head on her shoulders. Not somebody who's asking you to buy a purse every other month, and if you don't, you're in trouble. That's not how life works. And that's what I think that needs to get into the message also. It's not about money. Money can be at the byproduct, definitely in the end. But if you get the first building blocks correct, you probably get there. You most likely are going to get there.
Yeah, and I think this is what I'm, and I think that's the key part, right? That's what I said about what is the messaging we have to give to men in order to get to that space. Mrs. E brought up some good points, right? The campuses are going to be 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3, maybe it could be even worse. It could even be worse than that, right? But the reality of the situation is, again, the messaging has to start from young in terms of what are you looking for. See, let me give myself as an example, right? The focus for me has shifted. Like when I was younger, I was more about get a girl, get married, right? Had some failed relationships, don't really get there. And then what happens is I kind of find my purpose, and I'm like, do you know what? Let me focus on the purpose of my career. Let me build me up and focus on that, right? The other aspect that comes into it is that the moment you start getting more money and you get older, you stop looking at relationship as what you need right now. I'm just gonna be real with you, right? Then it puts you in a position where, like you said, 1 to 3, 1 to 4. But the reality is 1 to 4, which one of them are marriageable? So you're in the same predicament the women are in, because we say to the women, there's so many people in your DMs. You don't look at the good guys. You don't look at the guys that are there around you. You have so many guys that want you, but you don't look at them. Well, I've got the same problem. I don't want none of these girls. 1 to 4 of these women, it could be 1 to 4 on campus, but the reality is how many of these ones I want to marry? And the problem is my mindset is not in that space. So what I'm saying is the messaging has to change from early. We have to condition young men to get into marriage earlier. And we have to let them know the reason why, because we actually benefit when we end marriage earlier. You know what I mean? You're in a more stable environment. You grow. We hear so many testimonies of men talking about how they've financially grown being with a partner. See, that level of responsibility also aids you as a man to push you further. Men love responsibility. We like it. We like having responsibility to a degree. You know what I mean? So when you have that responsibility, it even forces you to want to do more. I'll give you another example. When I lost my job and I started YouTube, and I started full-time YouTube in 2020, I had a girl at the time, right? Do you know what my first thought was? I cannot embarrass myself and let this girl down. Like, men, we have this thing. Like, if you're taught well, right, you have this ego and you have this pride. You have some shame, you have some class. This is why some men do gangs, because they understand that at all costs I will make money. Why? Because we like responsibility. And when responsibility comes upon us, we know we have to step up to the plate. Whether that's social engineering, whether we believe that's because men have been, men are valued by their finances, makes no difference to me, because biblically speaking, the Bible tells us that a man will till the ground. You ain't got no choice, you're gonna have to work. So as a man, we need that responsibility because it actually pushes you to want to go further. Do you see what I'm saying to you? When you have that responsibility on your neck and you realize there is no turning back, there's no time to play Jack. You can play a little bit, but you can't do too much. You're forced to go forward. And so what I'm saying is that when you hear married men speak about their experiences, you hear them speak about how well their wives have helped them to cultivate where they are right now. Because 2 are better than 1, and 2 can put a 10,000 to flight, and one can put 1,000 to flight. So that needs to be preached and spoken of. What I don't hear in the men's spaces is those conversations. That's what I don't hear. Oftentimes when I listen to the men's spaces, their first issue is don't get married. Or if you're going to get married, have a prenup. and everything becomes about fear and not about unison and partnership. And the reason why you're fearing like that is because you 30, you 35, you're already grown, you already got your money, you've already got your platform, you've already got your assets already, and you're afraid of losing those things that you have. Guess what at 20 you don't have? Assets. Guess what you don't have at 20? Money. Guess what you don't have at 20? You don't have the fear, because you know why? You ain't got nothing. So this is the message that we should be also preaching to young men, because at that point you are fearless. Why? Because you don't have much to lose either. Now, don't get it twisted. There are going to be some people that are going to get married at 20 and it ain't going to work. And this is where maintenance and training and skills, and where the elders who have been in positive relationships, and even those who have not been in good ones, can give better advice and say, hey, look, in order for us to grow, in order for us to maintain a relationship, here are things that you should be doing. Let me give you an example. I was invited to one of my boys' he was going to get wedded. He was going to get wedded, and it's a Zim community. I love the Zim community because they're really close. And when we had, I think, the men's night, we had like a men's night or whatever, right? So like almost like your stag night or whatever you want to call it, that, right? And it was some of the younger boys and some of the older boys, right? Sorry, not older boys, some of the older men, some of the older gentlemen as well, right? So we had some of the older gentlemen and some of the younger men. Now, what they did was so powerful that I said, there's no way he gonna fail this relationship. I am now invested. I can see the uncles are invested. Here's what happened. We sat in a room, we all catch jokes, we're listening to music, we're eating food. They got the braai going. If you know what braai is, they got the barbecue going. Yeah, some people are barbecuing, some people are drinking, some people are chatting. It got towards the end of the night. I remember this because I had to leave early. I was wearing my grey Puma tracksuit. I remember that because it was way too tight. I should have got another size up. And I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting right next to him. And they said, everyone's going to sit here and is going to give you some advice about marriage and about relationships. I'm thinking to myself, let me sit out, because this is for the grown folks who are going to give the information. These guys are married. They've been married 5, 10, some 15, some 20, some 3, some are brand new. These men sat around and they started giving advice and saying, hey, and I was listening, because for me personally, I like to listen and see, what kind of advice they would give and what I would take aboard myself and what I would throw away. It's not to me, it's to him, but I'm still going to try and take as much as I can from it. I'm sitting and I'm listening. I'm hearing somebody who's been in marriage for the first year. He's giving advice, said, hey, look, from my perspective, like, make sure that, you do X, Y, and Z. I was like, that's wise. Person's 5 years in. He says, listen, hey, look, from my perspective, I may not necessarily do what he does, but I do something different. But for my relationship, I make sure that X, Y, Z so we can stay together. I'm like, that's sensible. And as I'm hearing more and more of this, right, I'm listening and I'm like, wow, these men are actually planting seeds in this young man, and they don't realize that this seed is going to germinate one day. What am I saying? I'm saying that these words that they're speaking into this man, my boy next to me, is actually going to grow and fester as the years go by. Because as things happen in a relationship, you're going to remember those words. Oh my God, my uncle said this will happen, this will happen. So they were speaking prophecy without even speaking prophecy, without actually being prophets. Why am I saying this is so important? Because as men and as women, but I'm specifically speaking to men, you need other men around you. Right? You need other men around you. You need a community of men around you. My brother who got married, my friend who got married, sorry, I call him my brother, but he had so many men around him in that community. So his mind was marriage focused from early. His mindset has always been marriage focused. Now, don't get twisted. He's had some playtime. I rolled with him. We've had some playtime. You know what I'm saying to you? But look where he is now. He's a business person. He's focused. He's about having marriage. Now, that doesn't mean it's easy. That doesn't mean that things have come so quick and didn't. I spoke to him the other time. I said, bro, how you find? He said, hey, wait, it gets tough sometimes. But the reality of the situation is the input that he's had has made sure his mindset is focused on, I have to be married, I have to have a sturdy, and I have to provide, I have to make sure that my family's taken care of, I have to protect, provide, and serve. That's his mindset. Why? Because that's what he's taught. The issue I'm saying is that this needs to happen from the beginning, because there's no way I can tell my daughter, hey, daughter, make sure you do this, that, make sure you're ready for your marriage. And then I don't train no man to be the same way. What is she going to encounter? And if I don't train men to be that way, who else is going to be trained? Someone else is also saying, I'm not training my man to be that way. You're going to do what you're going to do. Okay? So for me personally, I'm saying that, and I think I appreciate Green Oak. I'll address that comment in a second too, because it's a good perspective. Me personally, the training has to start young. The Bible says, train a child in the way, train a child in the way to go, and he will not depart from it. The mindset needs to be imputed. Even if he gets to college and is 1 to 4, I'm not saying he's not going to play, but his mindset's always going to be, I want to get married. It eventually catches up with you. The training that you've had will eventually catch up with you. In sports in the UK, we have soccer, football. One of the coaches, that's one of the greatest coaches, Sir Alex Ferguson, Man United, is said to have that when he had young players come in, he said to them, hey, you need to get married. No, why would he be saying that? Because you need to be sturdy. See, your football, once you have too many women, it distracts you. The Bible says that kings are taken down by women. Yeah. You know what I'm saying to you? So men need the messaging from early to say, this is the guide and the training that you need to take. This is where you need to go. This is what you want. Now, not every man's going to get married at 20, 23. They might not even get married at college style. But because they've been imputed with that message, that's always on the back burner, on the mind of that person. So their movements, when they're ready, it's a go. So that's what I'm asking for, so that more of us can be in that space. And my final kind of point I want to make on this situation was addressing what the Green Oak was saying. I think it's important to address it and be fair. He says, keep in mind that coach is always for marriage, but has never been married, preaching water, but drinking wine. Absolutely. I will always preach and advocate for marriage, because that's the final destination I believe I should be at. And I'm always going to tell you this. I can be cognitive dissonant. I can hold two opposing views. I can know one is a truth and one is a lie, and still do the lie, but still take the truth. I'm never going to lie to you. I can always do that. You know what I mean? I'm a human being. I can hold two things, but I always want to tell the truth and say marriage is a better route for most of us as men. And I say most because I believe some people just need to do their own thing. For most of us, because it keeps us sturdy. It keeps us on a pathway. You get what I'm saying to you? Now, I found my career late. So, I'm kind of going through my little, I want to call it a hoe face. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to be over with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to lie about it. So, but my mind is always at, you know what? Yeah, I can't do this forever. I actually need to settle down. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm hoping that other people don't follow my route. I would like for you to do it earlier, because there's some time that's been wasted in between this time. And energy's been expended. Do you get what I'm saying to you? And as I accumulate more assets, more fear is going to creep in. So that's what I wanted to just to impute. Go for it, Mrs. Z.
No, I agree with this. I think that we need to give a middle finger to the economists that decided that this was a good idea. Right. So like I said earlier, we watched as our parents and our grandparents got married early, and for those of them that got divorced, they got divorced, and some of them obviously they stayed married until one of them passed. But currently, the average age for first-time marriages for women, at least in America, I think is like 29, damn near 30 years old. For men, it's some 32 or something like that, something along those lines, right? So, and we're watching that age go up fast, more and more, and faster too. So just yesterday it was 27.8, right? So pretty much 28 years old, first-time marriages for women. I do think it's because we have allowed for marriage to be pushed at the end of adulting. And that does mean making sure you are like as stable can be before the fact. So I definitely understand where the ladies are coming from in the comments, and other comments I've read throughout the internet about this subject, where it's they don't want quote unquote struggle love, right? They don't want the struggle, they don't want to go through it, and so they're pushing marriage off later and later, and so are the men, because the particular society we have, and the women that are saying, I know so many people that got married young and they got divorced. This is true, because at least it's one or two in America of the top reasons for divorce is finances. And like, it's easy to be like, oh, it's just money and you're growing and you'll get it, but like, no, like, look, that financial struggle is real, right? So when we go through that as a young couple, especially a young married couple, I can definitely understand the women that are like, I'm not going through what my mother went through, right? I'm not going through, it's one thing if it's infidelity, right? But, or even if it's, physical, assault or something like that, right? Abuse. When it's finances, that's a different conversation. I could definitely understand the women that just don't want to go through it, right? They don't want to go through that, and I get it. So if that's one of the top two reasons for divorce in America, and we're telling women to risk it, and they don't want to, not to mention, like I said, the average age of first time marriages being damn near 30 for women now, that speaks to something. That speaks to them trying to get their ducks in a row and be stable, and wanting men obviously that are just as stable, but most likely even more, come in with even more. So there was an article written a few years ago that said economically unattractive men are leading to a downturn in marriage, and that wasn't just specifically for the Black community. So we have to factor in the money thing. I agree with you in socializing the men, particularly in college, to be married, or to seek marriage, to seek that future wife, because it does bring some stability in your life. But I think not only is it a difficult ask because of those men and testosterone and all this other stuff, but once again, the stability aspect, right? And I think that's something that we're gonna have to socialize the men and the women, that in the beginning it may not be all peaches and cream. If we're asking young people to be married or to seek marriage, let's say before the age of 26 or before the age of 27, then they're gonna have to know that in the beginning it might be a bit difficult financially, right? So I think that's something that we have to socialize the men and the women for. And when you hear people saying no struggle love, hey, I don't know how you're going to socialize the women to know that that you're going to start off with that civic of a lifestyle, right? That's where it's going to start. It might not even start off as a civic of a lifestyle. It might start off as a used 15-year-old Corolla of a lifestyle, and I'll pause right there.
And you're actually right. Listen, I'm not going to deny there aren't women like that, and maybe I'm going to be a bit biased here. At 21, 22, maybe because I come from a Christian background, look, women were not thinking about money because you weren't in that position. You know what I'm saying? And again, I'm coming from a UK perspective, so it's going to be a little bit different. But at 21, 22, because we come from Christian backgrounds, marriage is what people are really focused on. Like, you get pushed with that thought process from early. So when you're dating someone, you're already thinking like, how are we going to get married? Maybe 2-3 years. We'll try and do like blah, blah, blah. Money is not the main motive. It's not the main motive. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Like, wasn't the main motive. I'm not saying that money didn't come up in the conversation, but it wasn't main motive. Now, my thing is this. My thing is this, right? That when you're young, the priorities are different to when we get older. When you get to 30, yeah, you're thinking about money. You're thinking about, I need to make sure I date somebody who's got a financially stable job, and is, somebody who, is going to be more financially viable. Yeah, but at 20, you're not really thinking about that. So, and this is what I'm saying about the messaging has to be different. So the messaging early has to be this, right? About, yes, be intentional in your dating, focus on trying to get married, but also there's life skills that need to be applied, what we call adversity intelligence, right? What in our community, what we need to be focusing on is imputing that child and that young man with reputable skills, life skills that transfer, so that when they go into their life and go into the job market, they can also use that and transfer it over. Because a lot of the time when we talk about even money being an issue as why people divorce, it's not because people don't have money. It's the way you utilize it. And it's the way that you discuss it. And it's the way that what it means for both parties. This is all part of education that should be happening as young people. We don't have these kind of conversations. We don't have this kind of conversation. These are the conversations that we should be letting the young ones. Before you go, Mrs. D, I'm going to get where's the juice going first.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the conversation we should have with young people, so they can start to sit in and start to hear some of these things, because these are all part of life skills. Emotional intelligence, adversity intelligence, intelligence in general. And then you talk about social skills, social intelligence. These are all life skills that need to be imputed on young men and young women, right? At one point in lifetime, men were getting married very, very young. So clearly the age is only an issue now because of the other things that we're not teaching young men that they need to have as young men to be resourceful when they go into these spaces, right? half of us are learning financial literacy now. Half of us are learning how to even read our emotions and be in there. Half of us are trying to even understand, ourselves and stuff like that. And of course, but part of this education needs to happen from young, and it should be part and process that. And let me tell you why we can do it, because we do it for women already. We prepare these ladies to be marriage material wives from early. Every message we send to them, whether it's direct or whether it's through marketing or whether it's through the little things that we said, we're preparing them for marriage. So clearly we do have a message that can work and does socialize a child to be, when they get older, ready for marriage. The same thing has to be for a man. We need to start regulating. My friend, you should be thinking about how to get into a job early, because Chale, you haven't got time to start playing and dancing around and trying to say, I'm a young man, let me play around. No. We need you to get into that space, because when you go into something like the Jewish community, you can't play this game. You can't play this game. I'm not saying that people don't be playboys in the Jewish community. I'm saying that the messaging is that you got to be serious. And I think we need to have that same ethos. We got to be serious about these young men. Get them educated from young, so that when they get older, they're much more ready to handle affairs that are happening in a relationship. You know, where's the juice? Talk to me. What are you saying? Where's the juice? You there? Oh wait, I don't think you. Let me unmute you. Go for it.
Hey, what's going on, everybody out there? How you doing?
What's good, Captain? Good to hear your voice, man.
Wiley, I would agree with Ebony K. Williams that if you are looking to marry, to have children, then it is best to do so early and, if possible, organically. And there's no other environment that can do that for you than the HBCU. You're surrounded by people like-minded, ambitious, without the apps, real interactions, social groups, social clubs. You can really build and foster those relationships. So I think that's paramount. Let me see some of your other points. I guess a little bit about myself. I really wasn't given those tools and keys. My father was a street dude. His grandfather, my father's father, was a street dude in the hustle. So they really didn't grow and develop those tools and men's development. I knew how to get dressed and get fly and put on cologne, but that's not talking to women, and at least not doing it so with respect. But I always had a knack for cutting hair, so I was that neighborhood kid walking around with clippers. So I started working in the barbershop, and that's where I got my exposure to the Black community, seeing fathers come in of different sorts and ilks. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, so it's kind of a diverse background, just the military being there. So you get to experience a lot of different kinds of men, not just the street dudes, but the family man, and also their wives coming in, seeing these family dynamics. So I got an informal education in the importance of family. And I think that really grows and developed, that really grew and developed me, especially as I started going forward and career changes and going overseas and getting that money. So it has to start young and start early. I didn't get mine from my father, but I got it regardless.
Can you just expand on that a little bit more than where's the juice? Because I think this might be really important, right? Because you said something really powerful. You said you knew how to put on a good dress sense and a good cologne. I'm guessing is that what you picked up from? I guess obviously the little you picked up from, yeah.
Because it really wasn't about trying to talk to a woman and do all of these things. Like, I was reared a Jehovah's Witness from my mother, so I really wasn't even supposed to be out there dating anyway. That was doing it more much. So, but my father was kind of in the truth out of it. So he's dibbling and dabbling back and forth, straddling that fence damn good. So he would teach me some of the flash and the glam, the glitz, the things that don't necessarily matter, but it'll start the conversation. But what do you do when you have her attention? Now I'm going to my friends in the neighborhood, and he got bad advice, and he has worse advice. So all of this just culminates to a bunch of BS. And then, back then, hip hop is huge, major. I got on my Vocal shorts and my FUBU jersey, two-sided do-rag.
Not Vocal.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to throw it back on you, brother, because you was there with me. Yeah, but it was all the fluff, but it wasn't substantive, but actually being in that barbershop and seeing these experiences of other married men, single brothers, guys my age, getting out there doing their things, living vicariously through them. I don't have to go down that path to get the keys. I'm going to just walk through the door. Luckily for me, I was able to have an open ear and be receptive to what they were saying. So that's kind of how I grew and I developed. And I eventually started contracting. I went overseas for 10 years, and now I'm making 6 figures. But I'm really am in an unstable environment because I'm in Afghanistan. I'm in a war zone. So you're trying to date out here. It can't get much worse than that. So now I'm stagnant in my development. So here I am back in the States. I didn't even know what a love language was. You know, I'm thinking, hell, my love language is fried chicken. You feed me damn good, baby girl. That's half the mission. You know, you got my toes curling. I'm in there. You know, so I had to really take a humble position and focus myself and ground myself because I got some work to do. Because it's one thing to have the things and talk to the women and be that person, but now I got to relate to them at an older age. You know, they're older. You know, it really has changed. So I kind of am a little bit stagnant in my development. I'm working on it. I'm catching up, but I had to take a humble position. So conversations like this to an open-minded man are still beneficial. So I think Kojo is doing the work when the opportunity is presented to him. But if you're going to be here and attend these meetings, be open to it as well. You know, just don't come in closed-minded. You're not going to get anything. So I appreciate you.
No, man, I appreciate you too. Where's the juice, man? You know, and I reason I appreciate because you shared some vulnerability there, and I think these are the kind of things when people share them that other men are freed from, because we ain't all got the. If I ain't got all the answers, and just like you, where's the juice? I'm saying that there's things that even I wish that maybe I had more conversation with my dad about to be able to understand. Do you get what I'm saying to you? And so these conversations where exchanging information is so powerful. You know what I mean? Go for it, Cap. You want to say something? Go for it. Oh, I think you right. I thought you were going to say something, Wesley. Sorry, my bad.
Oh, no.
Go for Mr. Z.
You know, something you said earlier, Kojo, and I just wanted to give you something to maybe consider. When you said it's not money, it's, you know, communicating about it and whatnot. Look, contrary to popular belief, Americans are extra average and poor. Okay, like, and I'm bringing this up for a reason, right? Like, you know, 40% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency. 60% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency, according to MSNBC, their data collection agency or, you know, group of people. So, and they said, you know, 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck in some capacity. With that, and like I said earlier, you know, divorce, you know, we know that women file some 70% of divorce, and if they're college educated, when there is a divorce, it's, you know, 90% the women. It really is, you know, finances and money related. I don't think it's about communication. That's what I'm attempting to say. I really do think it's not just the lifestyle, but what we can afford, right? And, you know, a lack of finances, that stress right there, that's a stress damn near like no other, right? Like and I do think that puts a strain on Black people. I'm specifically saying ADOS FBA when I say Black, but that includes all Black people in the West, but particularly America. That strain is real, right? So if Americans in general, 60% of them couldn't afford a $1,000 emergency right now, you can imagine what that means for Black people specifically. And then when you put the requirements of manhood and what we know, protector, provider, this is your role, right? Not just ordained by God that comes from the Bible, but these are things that you're socialized, that you're supposed to do, right? This is why you sometimes hear about granddad or dad that went to go get milk and never came back, right? Or he came back 20 years later, he went to go get a pack of cigarettes and didn't come back, because that stress of that providership is real, right? And that's him beating mom to the punch or beating grandma to the punch, but she was going to leave his ass anyway, right? Because he wasn't providing the way he ought to. I think we need to factor that into the conversation also. I just think there's a lot of stressors both on men and women to get these relationships right. That's why I'm reluctant to give people like this hard and fast rule of how it should go. I agree that maybe we should socialize our young people to marry earlier, but I understand the environmental factors that keep them from doing that, right? And I don't want to put people in this kind of catch-22 where you marry early and then you get divorced because the money was funny, right? And that's for the men and the women. For the men, it's, oh my God, she wants me to do all of this like tomorrow. And for the woman, oh my God, he can't do all of this like tomorrow, right? And I just think it's a very we find ourselves in a difficult position, both as millennials, young Xers, millennials, and the oldest of Gen Z, where there are these expectations that it's coming from boomer parents, mainly boomer grandparents, depending on how old you are, and yet we haven't helped to foster the environment for your average person to live this, right? We if you were raised in a not just traditional family, but let's say you weren't raised traditional, you're not big in the church or whatnot, you can still live this particular life if your parents and your grandparents set you up financially to live that particular life. You could be very secular and live this particular life because of what was set up for you, right? In America, we know that in the next decade, there's a $16 trillion wealth transfer that's about to happen, mainly to white folks, right? So what is that going to mean also for marriage? And then who's getting married? I'm saying that to say what I think is going to happen is we're going to assign character flaw even more to black men who are going to be less likely to get married. And we're going to assign, this kind of, well, look, the white men are doing it. And some of the Asians, what happened to you black and Latino men? Not understanding that he's practicing that because capitalist society, and he can afford to. It's not just he knows what it means to be a man, and he's practicing manhood and what it is to be a husband and a provider, protector. It's his family put him in the position to play the role financially, right? And whether his wife divorced him or not because of character flaws, she's less likely to, because what's she gonna do? Leave him and go where? Right? And I'll pause right there. You get what I'm saying with the finances and how that's linked to marriage and divorce, and just the way we see manhood and masculinity. And I'll pause right there.
No, I'm hearing you. We're gonna continue this conversation tomorrow because I gotta go do some work. And we'll focus on that where you ended up, Mrs. Z, about money, relationships, and marriage. Because I think it's another discussion to have around that topic. I think it can be very helpful for people to learn from that, because I do think there's some key points in there as well. I will just summarize and say, I do feel like, marriage is beneficial for both men and women, and doing it young is beneficial. I think there are some things that need to be worked out. I think messaging needs to be changed for both men and women in terms of how it is messaged. And how it's delivered. But, I think that this is opening up a good conversation when people are open, as Where's Juice was saying, as when people are open to having that dialogue, you know what I mean? So I appreciate Mrs. Z, Where's the Juice, and this Queen. We'll be back here tomorrow. Where's the Juice? If you got me on Insta, add me on Insta, man. And Mrs. Z, add me on Insta too. I think I got Mrs. Z. I already got you on Insta, I think. Yeah. But send me a message so I can send you the time for tomorrow, innit? And if you're free.
And thank you for having me up, Coach.
No, pleasure, man. Pleasure.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it. Audience,
chat, brother. I would appreciate it. I'm definitely not. I will be, but I'm not a follower currently. So put me on.
That's right, my G. You know what I mean? I got you, bro. I'll put it in the chat for you there, man, as well. Thank you. This is Queen as well. We appreciate you as well, sis, for coming through and putting the ladies on the map as well. Audience, thank you so much for being respectful. I know some of you were out here in Rambo form. Don't let them derail you from the conversation. I know, but we appreciate your opinions and your thoughts, and it was a good conversation. And we're going to continue tomorrow, and hopefully we'll get to have more in-depth convo, you know what I mean, and break it open a bit more as well. Nicole 85, I got you. Nicole, send me a message in it, so I'll take the time for tomorrow. But I gotta jump off. I got another meeting to get to. So I appreciate you guys. Still locked, so loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon. Much love.